Hey there, friends. Thanks for tuning in to another exciting episode of An Artist's Way of Healing. I am your host, Jonathan Palmiotti. I am excited you're here. Today, we have yet another exciting guest speaker who has graciously made time to be here today to inspire us on his artist journey and tell his story on how the arts has inspired him to become who and where he is today. Today, I present to you Javier Muñoz from Brooklyn, New York. Javier, please say hi to our listeners.
Hello, everybody.
Javier is best known for starring and co-creating the role of Alexander Hamilton in the hit musical Hamilton on Broadway for 2 years after Lin-Manuel Miranda departed the show, and was his alternate prior to that. He got his break starring as Usnavi in the Heights on Broadway, also created by Miranda. Fresh off the heels of the Chicago production of the musical The Devil Wears Prada in the role of Nigel Owens, he just concluded his run starring in the rock musical Galileo at Berkeley Repertory Theater opposite Raul Esparza. Javier starred in the dark comedy indie feature Monuments, the indie feature Love Reconsidered, and stars in 3 months opposite Troye Sivan and Judy Greer. Javier is also an outspoken activist for HIV AIDS and LGBTQ+ rights. Javier, it's great to have you on An Artist's Way of Healing. Thank you so much. Also, happy Pride Month.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's honestly such an honor to have you here. I'm very grateful and very humble that you're here. I hope this month was filled with lots of love, joy, and happiness. Now, I know you are an outspoken activist for LGBTQ+ rights, which is absolutely amazing. And I'm sure you are constantly helping people every day with your words, wisdom, and spread of love and kindness. What was your inspiration to becoming an activist, and what does it mean to you to be one to help change people's lives every day?
What a question. That's huge. It's actually really funny. This work came into my life really early. I was 17, and I had just started my freshman year at Brooklyn College. No one in my family ever went to college until me. I'm the youngest of 4 boys, and I really wanted to explore university. I wanted to know what this was. And so I went to a city college just to sort of explore higher learning, just to see, is this for me? And my freshman year at Brooklyn College, the mayor at the time was Giuliani, and we all know what a gem he turned out to be. And he had decided to raise the tuition rates of city universities. And what I loved about Brooklyn College at that time was my classrooms were filled with people my age and single parents and immigrants, people who were learning English at the same time while learning this course with me. It was so diverse in terms of life experience and where people were in their lives. And it was higher learning. It was excellent. I fell in love with college, the whole feeling and structure of that kind of freedom of learning, not so structured as high school. I was terrible in high school, but you gave me the freedom of choice in college, and I just wanted to learn everything I could. And I loved being exposed to different generations in my classroom and different perspectives and life experiences. And this tuition hike meant that the majority of the people I was sharing these classrooms with could no longer afford to attend Brooklyn College. And so it was this small thing in terms of all the things that I now advocate and activate for, but it was so personal. And I remember the moment I heard that there was going to be some sort of student protest, I ran to add my body and my voice to that energy. And those were my first protests. They weren't the first causes. That wasn't the first cause I cared about. I just hadn't married action to the things that I felt were wrong in this society, in our culture, in our world. I hadn't learned that I could use the power of my voice, of my time, of my energy, of showing up to protest or my signature on whatever petition was circulating. That was me at 17 discovering the power of one.
Wow.
And that made so much sense to me. It made so much sense to my being. And I think, like anything, we all care I don't know that there's a lack of care in this world. It's easy for someone who feels strongly about something to feel powerless, as if I don't know what to do. What difference can I make? And I think I spent all my years before 17 getting angry at so many things that were happening in this life, in my life, in the world, and in communities. And it was at 17 discovering that I have the capacity not just to participate, I have the choice to participate in these things, in protests, in petitions, in lending my voice. But I actually have the capability. And it was a discovery I didn't know I had. Was really when you're willing to show up in physical ways to activate for a cause you care for, it takes a lot. And it's not just courage, right? It does take courage, but there's a lot you're putting at risk. And I realized I have the bandwidth for that. I have the capacity for that, and a really deep well of energy for this. And so that actually became such a focus for me. At the same time, my very first job was using theater to teach literacy in after-school programs in the 5 boroughs. So I was learning this. I was going through this self-discovery of what kind of power I have in the choices I make every day in protest and all the ways I activated. And I was learning that art wasn't just entertainment. And that was happening at the very same time. So I'm 17 years old. These life-shaping experiences are happening for me. And I married the two, and I said, this is my life. Like, this is who I am, and this is why I want to do my art.
Yeah.
My art is going to feed my activism. My activism is going to feed my art, and they are one thing. And that's what it's been.
It's really amazing. You said something actually that was really interesting. People are powerless. And
we feel powerless.
They feel powerless. I'm sorry. Yeah, they feel powerless, and I feel like they don't have the motivation, I guess is the word, to speak up because they're afraid to.
For sure.
And that's something really great about you as a person, that you actually are that beacon of hope for someone. If someone does not have that motivation to want to speak out, you do that for them. You give them that opportunity to be seen, especially with the causes that you are behind, like HIV AIDS, LGBTQ plus communities.
Yes.
And me as a person, like going through high school, I was very shy. I didn't have any friends. I didn't hang out with anybody on the weekend.
Yeah.
Because I was quiet.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything out of the ordinary. I stayed at home and I literally just played piano. But that was my life, and I was okay with that.
Yes.
And it was like I like to say it was my safe zone. It was my comfort zone.
I love that.
And as I got to high school, just believe it or not, I know this is kind of going a little bit away from the activist thing. When I got into high school, I did my first ever musical, Bye Birdie. And I was in the chorus. I wasn't anybody like big or anything, but it wasn't about that. It was the idea that like it kind of opened me up into a person that I didn't know I was or I could be.
Yes.
People like you that actually go ahead and speak for people that don't have the confidence or the motivation to speak up. We need a lot more people like you in this world.
Well, thank you very much.
You're very successful. People look up to you. They follow you. They want to hear what you have to say. And I don't think it's just because of, what you've done in your career. I think it's more so also the type of person that you portray yourself to be, which is amazing. What do you, when you think about like the people that, you've spoken to on the gram or, or, Facebook or whatever, like, are you comfortable? Like, you don't have to name names or anything, but are you comfortable sharing like some of the stories that you've heard in regard to the activism that you do?
Well, it actually ties into what you just said. I mean, that it more often than not, I think the responses and exchanges that I have and that I experience on social media are centered around that idea that someone feels like they can't do what they see me doing, and they're thankful that I'm doing it. But at the same time, they're empowered to figure out what they can do. And so I have exchanges with people who are like, I can't, show up at that event that you're doing, but I'm over here and I'm mailing these letters, or I just made these phone calls, or I'm raising money in this. I just had this beautiful exchange with someone who's raising money for HIV/AIDS through fundraising, marathons. It's like folks find their way. If you don't have the capacity to really charge out there and I always say this is like the most extreme thing. It's like light yourself on fire in the middle of the street, like, because it's the most extreme version of what we do, and I do not promote that. No one should ever do that, but because that's not what you need to do, right? Like it doesn't need to be that. The gestures can be exactly what you feel you are able to do. If it's one phone call to your representative, that's amazing. How many people, I hate talking on the phone. You're doing something I don't want to do. Yeah. Right? So like that we all have a strength to play to. And even just the idea of someone wanting to sit down with a family member and have a heart to heart about a cause, about an issue, or someone sitting down with a neighbor, or a town hall and gathering and sharing your opinion, that matters. I always say this, and I really mean it. There's no gesture that's too small, and that is really the heart of the exchanges I have with people who I don't know, I've never met. And we have these exchanges that are really beautiful. I mean, folks feel very safe to share a lot with me, and I don't take that for granted. It is not something that is lost on me. It is, when someone feels like they can turn to me for something, it is with great responsibility that I take that, because I know what it feels like to have to share or want to share and do share. And it's a lot. It takes a lot to do that. So those exchanges that I have, I value so much. Folks may not even know at times that they teach me so much in those exchanges.
And that's how you create relationships, and that's how bonds form.
Totally.
That's how boundaries come down, because people feel comfortable talking about things because they can relate.
Yes.
And that's actually, in a sense, how people heal as well. In relation to the podcast, people look for those opportunities to relate to someone, to heal, to look for those opportunities to be able to say what's on their mind. Perhaps it's to respond in a way, but maybe it's not to respond. Maybe it's just to listen.
Yeah.
I also, I'm very much a person where I feel like I don't want to impose on any such thing that someone says if they're going through a hard time, like a struggle or whatever.
Sure.
Because if they're struggling, they may not want a response. They just might want a acknowledgement, like you're acknowledging right now.
Exactly. Yep.
So thank you again for what you do. A lot of people are healing every single day.
I hope so. I really do hope so, and I think it works both ways, right? It's if someone feels like they've been able to access some degree of light from something I've done or said or whatever, the fact that that's happened is a healing on me too.
I was actually thinking that. I didn't say that, but I was actually thinking that, and I didn't say it.
But it
works both ways.
It works both ways. Absolutely.
Because you're a person.
Yes.
You have feelings.
Yes. I'm very sensitive, to be quite honest. Yes. So yes.
Everybody
exactly.
has their own limitations. Everybody has their own comfortable standpoints and what they're willing to say or not say. So yeah, always be respectful. Never take anything for granted is what I always like to say. Always know that when you're walking down the street and someone says something to you, be kind to that person, because you don't know exactly what they're going through or what day they had so far. That kind gesture of, giving, I don't know, a bottle of water when it's a hot day, like we were just talking about earlier.
Yes.
That's going to change their mindset on people and, that day or that week or whatever.
That's 100%. I agree with that.
So going off that, so I know you are a super hard worker, a humble person, a leader, a motivator, a talented actor, and much more. People look up to you. You're authentic, kind, a powerhouse activist, and your social media posts remind people daily to continue to center themselves and cherish the positive moments in life. Do you mind telling us how you got started in the acting world? What was your motivation to continue professionally? And what was the journey like leading up to your break as Usnavi in The Heights and then ultimately Hamilton? Take us back to the beginning, please.
Oh my gosh. It's
not too fast.
No, right. It's a crazy journey. I can take you back again. I was 14. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh my gosh. That just brought back so many more memories because I'm sitting here. Yeah, it was freshman year in high school. I went to so primarily I wanted to focus on science. I did not want to do this.
Oh wow, interesting.
Art was all over. Was everywhere in my family. Music was everywhere in my family, but I loved it. But I was looking at
in
astrophysics.
The sense of theater, just to clarify.
No, musicians and DJ, just any version of music. It was in my family.
Got it.
But it art was very present in my upbringing, and I loved it. But I wanted to focus on science and particularly astrophysics. And I went to a high school in Brooklyn called Edward R. Murrow. Murrow is not a typical high school. It's more like a magnet structure to it. You have majors or like focuses. You have there's all sorts of structural differences from normal high school to this structure. And the idea is it should feel more like a college campus, right? Which I think is what led to me being the first one in my family to go to college, because I loved that idea of it, but still, even high school, Murrow was still very structured. I'm not good with boundaries and drawing within the lines, if you will. I color outside of them often. And so at 14, I'm focused on science. Murrow has a planetarium.
Cool.
Very, very beautiful. My friends were in the theater program. We all lived in the same neighborhood, so we rode the bus together. And at that time, we're talking 1989, 1990 Brooklyn. A real different vibe in Brooklyn at that time. And it was way, way tougher, way rougher. It was very much like strength in numbers kind of thing, right? So I would not go home after school with all the other high schools because it was just way too dangerous. So I would go to the library after school and I would do all my homework and I would work on projects. And then at 6 p.m., I'd go meet my friends at the theater, and we would either take the bus home together or one of our parents would pick us up. But I would wait in the lobby of the theater. I never went in. And it was, I don't know, late November, December, something like that. And my friends were in rehearsal. 6 o'clock, I go down, and for some random reason, I decide this time I'm going to go into the theater. And I go in and I sit in the back of the house. It's dark. They're in tech. So I'm like really quiet. Really easy to read the room. I had no idea what tech was at the time, but it's really easy to walk into a dark theater and be like, I should be quiet.
Like anything, yeah.
I mean, it's just like kind of, you figure it out.
It's the mood, right?
Yeah. Right. So I sneak into the back row and I just sit down and I can see the director down in front. And my friends are on stage with what I now know is the lead actress. And they are performing Sun in the Morning, Moon at Night from Annie Get Your Gun. And it's stop and go, and they're in costume, and they're adjusting lights and working on music, and I'm watching this process. And I literally just say to myself, why am I not doing this? And it's such a profound moment. I can tell you like the temperature in the room. I remember it so clearly. Wow. Because it landed on me in the way that math and science make sense. When things align, there's a calm. There's just a centered feeling that I get. And I'm talking about numbers. I'm talking about proofs and just matters in subjects in science that just add up. There it is. There's the fact, right? And I sat in this theater and it made that kind of sense to me. And I thought, why am I not doing this? And the next musical was The King and I went to audition. And I got cast as an Amazon guard.
Yes.
And I stood on stage, arms folded, no lines.
I was a guard too, actually. I did The King and I.
See, there it is. There it is. Everyone should start there. I had no lines. I sang no songs, and I just knew. And I can't tell you that at that age, I could articulate that, but I knew this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Wow.
The structure of rehearsal, the environment of theater, the safety, the welcomed space. Everyone is welcome in that space. There is no one who has no value. Every human being involved in the piece has value. That meant everything to me.
Wow.
And I knew that's where I wanted to be. And I didn't need to be in the spotlight. I just wanted to be part of the process of it. And I've explored everything. You know, I've done props and I've done stage management and I've done everything because I love it all so much. But it just has been the thing that has spoken to my mind, my heart, my soul, my spirit. I understand the math of it, you know, the anatomy of it. And in its way, you know, playing a character and breaking down these beats and these moments and a character's reasons why and motivations, it's science still. I mean, I'm getting I'm breaking things down with my science and math brain, right?
100%. Down
to their atom, down to their cells, to the cellular level. So I understand who this human being is that I have to play 8 times a week.
Yeah.
And it all marries to my brain. So that's where it starts. And at 17, my last production was Sweeney Todd, and I was playing Sweeney. And my director, who was also one of my theater teachers, who is still in my life today, Scott Martin, he comes to see just about everything I do. He's still like in my life. Like we still email, we still message on Instagram. I mean, like, wow. He is part of my life. He's my friend. I love him so much. It's beautiful, right? The power of our teachers. I'll never stop cheering and championing our teachers because I would be nowhere without mine. And he believed in me so much. He had a former student who was an agent who he invited to come see me in Sweeney. I met with that agent after he saw me, and a month before graduating high school, I had my first agent.
Wow.
I was 17 with my first rep. I did not know I was green, and no one in my family's done this, so I'm learning all on my own. I had no idea that was not common. I thought, doesn't that happen to everybody? This is normal. Right. No.
You wouldn't expect like anybody that's starting out in the theater, you wouldn't really know what to do because
not unless someone's teaching me, like, right. Or showing me the ropes and like leading me by hand. No idea. So yeah, I started my professional career at 17 and I got my butt kicked left and right because I didn't know anything. I wasn't prepared to audition and what that all meant. And I was scared of certain neighborhoods and being on the train alone. And you know, I was 17, 18 years old. It was a lot to like learn off the cuff, but I did it and realized really quickly though that the people I was in the rooms with and in these rehearsal rooms with and like doing this work with, far more trained than I was. I was like, I'm running on like natural talent here, but I don't know half of the things anyone's saying. Like, what am I doing? So I went to Brooklyn College, and part of that intention was I need to train. I need a theater teacher. I need someone to guide me. I need to understand, like, I need to be able to walk into these rooms and talk to these people about Brecht and Shakespeare. I need to understand Tennessee Williams in the ways that Tennessee Williams should be understood, right? Like, I just didn't know. And I found that, and I found this hunger in me for more and more knowledge when I finally went to Brooklyn College. And that's what led to me transferring to NYU. So from Brooklyn College, I transferred to Tisch because I was, my mentors at the time, who were from that first job of using theater to teach literacy, believed in me so much that they co-signed on my loan because my parents didn't have enough credit. And I mean, I've been blessed this entire road. The universe has carried me through
because people wanted you to succeed because they believed in you,
they believed in me. Yes.
And I can imagine that, like you said, because you still keep in contact with that one professor that you mentioned.
Yes.
Knowing that person, your journey in your life has led you to where you are today. I always say whatever's meant to be is meant to be.
Yes.
Because my family says that. You just so happened to be in the room where you were meant to be with those people.
Yes. Literally. And no matter what I did, the success found me. the shows found me, right? Where I was meant to be found me, because I definitely strayed, but it found me in the end.
Right.
Right. So, going to NYU was really meant to be so I could graduate with that Tisch credit on my, the Tisch diploma on my resume. And when you're new in this industry, that's really all that they can look at, that casting can look at, is where did you train?
Right.
And then see where they can fit you and what they can offer you. If once you build those relationships with casting directors. I could go on for days between graduating NYU and the start of my professional career. Really, really, really not easy. Really not easy. And no matter what I did, though, I moved to San Francisco for 2 years. My health took a turn, and I ended up contracting HIV in 2002. I couldn't book a job, and I left the business. I left the industry, and I took a general management position of a new restaurant in Hell's Kitchen. I was so miserable.
Oh.
I was so miserable. My boss was verbally abusive. It was really horrific. It was like the worst of situations. We're talking about what's meant to be, right? A college friend from Tisch, right? The school that my mentors insisted I transfer to and helped me get into. And I worked my way through. They are a dear friend to me to this day. And they'd written their first musical and were hounding me because they'd written a role for me. And here I am, a GM in this new restaurant. And I was like, okay, I can manage this. We'll figure this out, but this will be my swan song, and then I'm done. I'm done with this work. This is my last thing.
Oh, so you were going to just leave it behind completely?
I had to, because I needed health insurance, and I was also helping support my parents who were going through their own health challenges. This was, there was so much going on, and I just wasn't working. No one was hiring me, and I was getting cast in nothing. And so I say yes to this workshop of my friend's musical. Day one of the musical, there's only one actress in the room I don't know. And the next day, she has sent me a voicemail. This is the days of pagers and beepers and voicemail services. We didn't have cell phones yet. We didn't even have MP3s. We still have Discmans.
But just really side note. Don't you think back ever and be like, weren't those the better days? Because now we're so wired with technology, because there's just so much.
It's too much.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry.
That's another conversation. We could have a whole podcast on that.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But they're literally, I get this message from her, and she explains that she's part of a new musical, and they're auditioning for a specific role, and she thinks I'd be perfect for it. And here I am, miserable at this GM job, and my friend Josh has coaxed me into this, saying yes to this gig. And now this stranger is knocking on my door for this other gig. And I went, okay, God, okay, universe. All right. Okay. So I invite her to the restaurant in between shifts. She hands to, talk about this. She hands me a script. She hands me a CD. I pop it in my Discman and I listen to the first track. It's the opening number to In the Heights. And wow. It's Lynn rapping Usnavi, and it's the very opening. And I'm blown away by what I just heard. And she already knew I would be. And she's like, take this home and read through it and let me know. And I was like, okay, I will let you know tomorrow, right? I was so excited by what I heard. The train right after my dinner shift, I closed the restaurant down. I get on the train to ride home. I'm living in Coney Island at the time, so I have quite the commute. Plenty of time to read the script, and I'm reading the script, and there's no drugs, and there's no crime, and there's no thugs. Like this, the characters on the pages of this script are my family. They could be my family. They could be everyone I love in my life, and not the caricatures that we were seeing on TV and film and everywhere else. Like real. How could I say no? And I said yes to the audition. It was 2 weeks at MTC, and it was to play Lincoln, who was at the time the brother of Nina Rosario, and eventually he would be cut from the show. But I auditioned and I booked it, and that's when I met Lynn, and that's when I met Lack and Tommy and the whole gang, and that's when I met Chris Jackson, and these series of events. And pick your place where it could have derailed. I went to school for science. Start there. And now I'm sitting next to Lin-Manuel, and LAC can't shut us up because we're geeking out over He-Man and, episodes and G.I. Joe and, goofing off with each other. And we can't stay quiet. And I've just made my new dearest friend. Now we're going to develop the character of Usnavi together in this little musical we're doing called In the Heights. And, we're going to win Best Musical. And then he's going to go on to write Hamilton. And we're going to create Hamilton together.
It's no big deal, it's just a casual day,
Right. Just right. But like anywhere along the way, the curveballs, the pick your place of where I could have had a whole completely other road, but life kept bringing me back to this thing. And here we are.
Wow. You mentioned something to me actually when we were taking, instructing me in private acting lessons.
Yeah.
This was a long time ago. Probably 10 years ago.
Yeah, it was just after Heights.
Yes. I had met you through a friend. You came to West Side Story at St. Greg's in Belrose.
I sure did.
And
it was awesome.
I was like, oh, wow. Anyway.
Yeah.
But you mentioned two interesting things to me. I think I should probably say the thing about college first, because that goes in chronological order. You mentioned to me that you had worked multiple jobs during college just to put yourself through college and also work in theater. Do you mind just going a little bit into that experience?
Not at all, because this is real talk. Okay. I said before that I'm the first in my family to go to college, so there was no tuition fund being held for me. That didn't exist. I chose to go to Brooklyn College because I could afford it. So I was working for this, literacy organization using theater to teach literacy. And that money was going towards my education, along with all of my scholarships and the things that I, managed to put together. When I started Brooklyn College, it was affordable enough for me to do that. And then Giuliani raised the tuition, and I could still kind of make it work, but it was tighter. So I could still hold on to one job there. It was great whenever I got catering gigs or other things on the side that let me, earn extra cash. That was fantastic. Cut to me transferring to NYU. There's no way I can afford $30,000 a semester on my own. My family can't support me financially, right? What they can provide is a home, right? So I have a place to live, which is Brooklyn. But not only am I paying, I have to figure out how to pay tuition. I also have to cover books and travel and food and dance clothes, because I'm learning all forms of dance in my training, right? Tap shoes and ballet shoes and jazz shoes and clothes and all the other equipment that you need. It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
And so I put myself through NYU working one full-time job, which was I was a host at a restaurant called 44 at the Royalton, which is in the Royalton Hotel. And I was a host. I would eventually become a server there as well. I would work private parties there, and I would earn extra money there. Weddings and birthdays or whatever people would throw in the penthouse of the hotel. I was a nanny part-time. I worked in a bakery. I was a barista for at the same time, a nanny at the same time, and 2 part-time jobs, 1 full-time job, 18 credits a semester, and always doing a show.
All at the same time?
All at the same time.
Oh my gosh.
So I saved my planner, because we had planners back in the day, right? We didn't have calendars on our phones. We didn't have cell phones yet. So
nope.
Saved my planner, because what I would do is there was no bedtime. I would, whenever I finally got home at the end of a day, there was homework or rehearsal or something to prep for the next day. So there were maybe a handful of hours I could sleep at home, but I was up late doing whatever work I had to do, sleep for maybe, 3-4 hours, get up, pack literally luggage that I would have to take with me, because I'm living all the way in, at that time I was living in Canarsie, the last stop on the L train. L train's the worst train ever. And in the city all day long.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't have time to come back home. So I have to take everything with me. Garment bag for, whatever shift I was working at the restaurant, all my school stuff and all my dance clothes and all my, scene study clothes, all of my, if I had, one of the other jobs, everything. everything I needed for the day in a piece of luggage that I didn't roll, I had to carry, and my garment bag and my backpack, and go through my day. Get on the L train and go to all my classes and go to all my training and go to all my jobs. And I found empty rooms in the Tisch building that I could access. And I would know when they were empty so that I could go in and sleep on breaks. So if I had an hour between two classes or between my shift or something, I'd go to here, nap there for 45 minutes, get up, run to the next thing. Nap in this other room for 20 minutes, get up, go to the next thing. And that's, I just included with lunch and where I needed to be and what class and where were, and rooms such and such for sleep time. And you have this much for, and nap throughout my day just to get through and do it all again the next day.
It's just amazing. Obviously, you had to do that just to get through, like, to do what you really wanted to do, and that was ultimately theater. And a lot of people can't do that.
No, and I mean, really, at the end of the day, no one should.
Yeah,
right. Education should not be that expensive.
100%. No, yeah, you're 100% right.
You know, but here we are.
But you know what? I think that kind of goes back to like any sort of like roots. Like, you know, it shows that you're a hard worker.
Very.
And you know, you learn that from your family. You know,
from my family, but also I think innately, I have a drive that is, it doesn't exist anywhere in my family. And I think there is something, there's a fire that I've come to know so well in me that I've gone through periods of time where I've just burned everything down. Everything around me just got scorched to the earth. Everyone around me got scorched to the earth from that fire. I've gone through times where it's so tiny and so small, and I've made room for all the wrong things in my life, and I'm not listening to it. I mean, and everything in between. But there is a fire in me. It's the same fire that didn't give up when I tested positive for HIV. It's the same fire that faced cancer. It's the same fire that got me through, you know, everything. And in the 48 years of my life, I've come to love and honor and cherish that drive. And it's actually not something that I was taught. It's something I had to discover in me and come to have a relationship with.
But actually, that makes me think about the post I think you made a couple of weeks ago or a month ago, maybe. It was in regards to you mentioning the exact spot that you found out about HIV.
Yeah,
you know,
that was 3 months ago.
But I guess it was like a different feeling, you know, when you went there.
It was huge.
Yeah. Just in the sense of like a healing perspective in relation to the podcast, because I can just imagine like thinking about other people that have contracted HIV or any type of disease. They remember exactly where they were.
Yes. You don't forget that. You never can forget that. Even if you wanted to, you couldn't forget it. I was living in California at the time in San Francisco, and I was living on Baker Beach in the Presidio. And I would sit on Baker Beach all the time. And the day that I tested positive, my dear friend, Craig, you know, really was the shoulder that I leaned on that day. And he came with me to the beach, and we sat on the beach for like half the day. And I remember that person, that version of me, was not thinking about a career, was not thinking about anything that's happened since, was thinking about health insurance and how much life did I have left, because at the time treatment was not what it was today. Like the virus is completely suppressed in my system right now. I can't give the virus to anyone. That's what we've gotten to, and which is unbelievable. But at that time, 26 years ago, it was a very different time, very different moment in treatment, in terms of treatment. And I was worried about things like employment. I wasn't thinking about any of the stuff that happened. And again, 3 days after that happened, that I tested positive, that fire got me out of bed. That fire took over, and I went running. Like, not literally, but I took my life by the hands and went running forward. Like, no. What do I need? I'm not giving up on me. And here we are. But like 26 years later, I have the opportunity, because I was just in Northern California at Berkeley Rep finishing Galileo, which is phenomenal. But I had 3 months on contract there, and 3 months to be in Northern California with this contract and have time. And I knew it. I knew the day that I said yes to the offer, I had to go. I had to go back. I had to revisit that spot. That spot on the beach where Craig and I sat that day. And I put it off for the first 2 weeks because I just was in an avoidance mode. I just, I would think about it, start crying, and I didn't want to cry. I didn't want to feel these things. I didn't want to feel it. I didn't want to feel the discomfort. Finally, the third Monday that we had off, I woke up and I made myself go. And I remember my defense mechanisms fighting, like, oh, I'm so tired. Oh, I have a headache. And I'm like, yeah, you sure do. Now keep getting dressed because you're going.
Yeah. You psyched yourself into it because you felt like this is what you needed to do to
100%.
Yeah.
I knew I had to go. I knew I needed this healing. I knew I needed this. And I couldn't have told you at the time what specifically I needed or what was going to happen or what I was going to feel. I had no idea. I just knew I needed to close this book, not this chapter, this book, this big, fat encyclopedia sized book that's been sitting open needed to be closed.
You need a closure.
Yes, I did. And so I took that ride, took the BART into the city, got on the Muni, the 38, all the way down. And I remember turning the corner to the entrance. I'm going to get a little emotional. I remember turning the corner to the entrance of the beach, and you don't see it. It's hidden by all the shrubbery. You don't see it till you actually turn the corner. And I turned the corner, and I was really, really happy that no one was around because the ugly cry that came out of me was so real. And I was glad there were no witnesses. But I had no idea what was still so hurt and open and scared inside of me until I turned that corner and saw that Baker Beach sign and saw that entranceway that I hadn't seen in 26 years. Because I left that life when I tested positive and I moved back to New York. I left it all behind. And that's the last memory I have of that place. And just seeing that entrance was enough to bring it all back, but take everything away. Take away the career, take away everything. Take away all the other things. The only thing that I felt when I turned that corner was that I'm still alive.
You're here.
That is 26 years later and I'm still alive. That boy that sat on that beach, that 26-year-old boy. Sorry, so it's 22 years. That 26-year-old boy was scared and had every reason to doubt that I would make it because I did. Who could have predicted the advancements we would make with medicine? But that was all that I felt. Just, I'm still here. I'm still here and able to come back and see this again. And I sat in the exact same spot I sat when that day happened. We always like to simplify things with a word, with a phrase. There's nothing to be said to simplify this. There is no simplifying a healing so profound that if it were a physical thing that I could hold, it would be sitting on that beach right now because I've left it there. I'm not carrying it anymore.
I just wanted to say something because I just had an interview with someone else. It was in regards to what had happened in that person's life. And then she devised a play and she couldn't get through the whole play. She couldn't because it was just too much pain.
Yep.
But then she actually mentioned, she's like, I wonder what it would be like to revisit that play today because it's a whole completely different experience. And she's like, maybe I probably would be able to get through it, but it was just an interesting thing. And whatever you were saying, it's beautiful. I was just thinking about that was literally the interview I had last week before you. So it's still fresh in my mind.
Yeah.
And so I just think about this whole thing of time does or does not heal all wounds. I don't know. It's kind of person to person in that regard, but you also look at life in a different perspective when time goes by.
You have to. It's too big of a lesson to not to.
Yeah.
I don't know that any of those changes need to be negative. There were hard times, and in those hard times, I wasn't my best self. That still taught me so much. The journey taught me so much. It's wisdom. It is wisdom, and we all have it as we age because we've lived through so much, and it's a beautiful thing to accept about aging. I think it's one of the more wonderful things about time is the wisdom we get as we go, and
the people we learn from, the experiences that we go through, that we just kind of propels us to where we are. Now, I know you just finished playing the role of Cardinal Morosini in the world premiere musical of the new hit rock musical Galileo that premiered at Berkeley Repertory Theater. Do you mind giving our audience a brief synopsis of the show, what your motivation was to take on the role, which I believe you actually kind of touched upon a little bit. What did you get out of it, and what did you learn, if anything, and what the show means to you?
Oh, so much. Okay, so this, I love this musical. And it is really based on Galileo's life. And this is something that I think audiences at large haven't seen me do much of. Any folks who are familiar with Shadowhunters have seen me play the bad guy, before. That was a little different because that's a bad guy who eventually comes around, and that's a different arc. But I've sort of muscled my way into playing the villains in my older age here, and I wouldn't characterize Cardinal Morosini as the villain. We name them the bad guy, the villain of the story. But to portray these people, these characters, they're not bad, right? They are, generally speaking, I don't believe in the villain archetype. I believe this is someone who has a set of values and morals and goes about pursuing them in their way. And their way might conflict with everyone else's way, but it's their way and it's what makes sense to them. And I, as the actor, have to understand why.
And they genuinely believe that what they're doing is the right thing because it aligns with their objective.
Right. And yeah. I have to justify why, so I can play that character. Right. So this was really something that fell into my lap 3 years ago. I fell in love with it immediately. My character actually historically would die at the end of Act 1 because at the time period Act 2 happens, he was already deceased. So I was only in Act 1, but I was in love with the piece. And I really loved the conflict, the conversation between science and religion. And the fact that this is how long ago, and we are still having the same conversation today. That is an age-old conflict in our world. Not even just our country, not even just our communities, our entire world. The history of the planet Earth is the conflict between science and religion. And this is a show that maintains dignity for both sides of the argument, which is something I cherish about that. Because I'm playing a man of faith who takes it very far, takes his devotion very far. And I didn't want to play him as a caricature. I didn't want to play him as just the, mustache twirling bad guy. He's a man of faith. There's a passion in there. There's a reason for his faith, for his devotion. There's a reason it goes as far as it goes. So the character is actually a combination of many other characters that existed around the time of Galileo who stood in opposition of his discoveries because of the threat his discoveries meant to the Catholic Church. I had to read up on a number of people to really sort of get a sense of who the character was on the page, because he's really a combination of all these other men, and sort of pick and choose. I could cherry pick, like, that's really useful for me from this particular cardinal, and this guy over here, well, I'm going to borrow that. And, so I had this like whole collage of people I could draw from to create this guy. I fell in love with his devotion. I fell in love with the fact that he believes so completely in something, period, full stop. He believes so passionately in something. And that allowed me to find this humanity for him that I have loved. The conversation I've had with audience members afterwards who say that to me. You know, even the creatives have said that to me. It's like the full human being that I've created on that stage, so that you cannot just say, ooh, bad guy church. No. There's a perspective here to listen to, as well as the science.
Yeah.
And there's a conversation to be had, not a fight, a conversation where actually both sides are listening. No. Talking happens, but let's listen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
You're right. Yeah.
So
100%.
Yeah. So like it's uncomfortable. None of this work in preparing this character was comfortable. He makes me feel so uncomfortable. I would start prepping in the apartment that I was housed in about an hour and a half before the show. And then we get a half-hour call before curtain, before the start of the show. And then at 15 minutes to the top of the show, I'd leave the dressing room fully ready for the show. And I'd go onto the stage and I would just walk the stage because I had to find him physically as well as emotionally. But it would take me close to like an hour, 45 minutes to find him emotionally because it was hard. It was hard to put me into his skin because we didn't necessarily agree, this character and me as a human being.
Because you just mentioned that it's something that you had to really go miles just to get to.
Just to get to find him and to listen and to receive and flesh out the human being, right? Not the caricature, the actual living, breathing human being that I could find him to be. So it really called on my humanity. It called on my humanity. It called on my compassion. It called on my patience. And that challenge was great. I love playing him. He's really hard. From his voice to his stature to his walk, it is very specific. There were times where I could lean into the rock and roll of it and let the Javier come out, you know, the version of me that takes the mic, you know what I mean? Like that version of me like could kick in every now and then because it's rock and roll, so why not? He is a really rich character to play. There's a really rich conversation there to be had. It welcomes everyone into that space. I don't know that audiences can resist. I watched audiences, or rather I witnessed audience members not be able to contain themselves and vocally react to things in ways that were like, you feel very strongly about this. And that's great.
A lot of the times that actually kind of says the difference between a performance and like
an experience. Yeah. And that's what folks were having in that house. And it was really wonderful, you know, even if my character was the target of their laughter, it was so profound and meaningful to say, that's how you feel about the church. And that's really interesting. And I don't know that you're taking that with you, audience member, but I'm taking that with me, that exists. That sentiment exists. I'm not going to forget that.
That's interesting. You have to really understand, obviously, what the character is going through. And like, you know, I just want to relate it to in the sense of the podcast because of healing. The fact is that this character, there's so much going on, and you have to not only step inside the embodiment of the character and what their attributes are or whatever, but you also have to understand that they're going through some sort of pain or healing or something.
And this character is.
And that's kind of what you were like, I guess that was kind of trying to relate it to what you were saying in regards to like they genuinely think that what they're doing is the right thing. So
right.
They might be going through their own healing path. And
we're witnessing it on stage.
Yeah.
We're watching that character go through it on stage. And that's exactly how I'm playing him. And so and in terms of healing, there are two things happening there, right? So it's not just as an audience member witnessing that journey, but it's also potential for the conversations that need to happen, because that's healing. Mm-hmm. And the reason I focus on listening is because we're just in an environment right now where we're not. There's a whole lot of shouting, a whole lot of yelling, and hardly any listening. And I'm having that experience with friends and colleagues. And the potential for healing conversation to happen, right? Where it is probably more important to be listening in that conversation than to make your point. There's a complexity of playing these types of characters that I feel offer a potential, even, and very selfishly, I do perform for audiences, but for me and, you know, the turbulent relationships I have in my life with people who are very close to me, who are devout, because I have some friends who are very faithful and passionate in their faith, and we're so close. They're intimate, chosen family people in my life. And then I have others where I can't communicate with them. Stepping into his skin, Cardinal Morosini has only given me more insight into both sides of that, into the folks, you know, the relationships I have that are close and the relationships that I have that are not. Galileo is a fantastic production. If you got to see it in Berkeley Rep, thank you for coming and having that conversation with us. It taught us so much, and it taught me so much. But also, you know, keep an ear and eye out, because we're hopefully coming to New York at some point. Fingers crossed. But the opportunity to have this conversation in public of a conflict that is age old, you know, religion and science. I think it gets to the heart of, through this rock and roll, through this, you know, the way it's presented today, and it's now, and it's juxtaposed against, you know, the Cardinals and our old traditions, that are, some of which are quite beautiful. Not all of them, but some of them. But there's the form in which the show is presented is so accessible, and it's inviting, and it's a world you want to inhabit. It's really visually beautiful. I think audiences are going to really fall in love with it. But it gets to the heart of the kind of theater that I want to do. And I think I've been pretty successful in terms of always choosing characters who are either positive representation or are sparking conversation that needs to happen. And I think that really is the whole point of art. Why I chose this above science and math and astrophysics is the humanity of what we do. And it has the power to allow someone to feel seen. It has the power to let someone who feels like they don't have a voice feel like they have a voice. To celebrate folks who never get celebrated or feel like they aren't even allowed into the room. And we get to celebrate them through the storytelling. We get to demonstrate relationships that are challenging and difficult and conflicted and hard, and have these moments in front of other human beings. And it lets the audience relive, review, renew, replenish. It lets an audience member take something in their life and say, wait, I understand that. I can relate to that. I'm connected to that. So that wasn't just an experience I had. I'm connected. There's a network of human beings, other human beings who feel this way too. Oh, right? Like it's...
And that's what makes people feel comfortable too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the power of art in general, and it's, you know, it's not number one reason why I'm so always frustrated when I hear an arts program has been cut in such and such university. It's like, you couldn't find money anywhere else, you had to cut the arts program. Yeah. Do you realize what you're doing? Because really, at the heart of what this isn't just dress up and playing on a freaking stage. This is it's humanity living out and playing out in front of you. And when you allow yourself to experience it, whether it's film, whether it's a book, whether it's dance, whether it's photography, whether it is theater, whether it's a play or it's a musical, you are allowing yourself to be in touch with your humanity. That is healing, that is empowering, that is enriching, that is validation, that is all the things that we need.
I always think about it also, you know, these people that actually make these rules, that actually like cut funding for the arts or whatever. I want to ask those people, do you go home? Do you watch TV?
Yeah.
Do you go to the movies?
Right. Do you put on the radio when you put on music when you drive the car? Right.
Yeah. Do you go to the theater occasionally? So you're cutting the funding of the people that actually do that work, right, so that you can have the enjoyment and reflect yourself and heal yourself from time.
And laugh.
and laugh,
or cry, or like just feel, right? Yeah,
and get together with friends and like enjoy and maybe heal together.
Yeah,
100%. That actually gets me into the next couple of questions. Many people believe that art heals people. What are your thoughts on the arts helping people heal?
Well, on top of everything we've already discussed, I also think that there's real profound evidence of things like music therapy. One of my dearest and closest and oldest friends, she's my sister really at this point, has left the industry, and she's gone into this work of therapy, but she uses music as therapy. I mean, it's something that we drop our defenses for as human beings. We don't put up a wall when we press play on a song, right? We put the wall down because we want to welcome music that we love, right? There have been so many times where, whether it was my own treatment or I was with a friend accompanying them for their treatment, it's whether it's chemo, radiation, whatever the situation is, where it's, I have an ear pod in my ear and one in theirs, and we're just listening to music. It's music that's getting them through their treatment or me through something. There is so much power in the relationships we create with expression. We may not go to a museum and be a person who looks at Andy Warhol and says, it's a Campbell's can. I don't understand, right? Fine. But I guarantee there's going to be some piece of art, some piece of work that captures you. And it's through that moment of capture that something can close inside of you. Something can, and I mean in a good way, a book, a page, a chapter, a hurt, a pain, a memory can release or have context. There are ways that art reaches us that other things cannot. There are sometimes messages in lyrics that we can receive that we can't bear being told, but we can hear it in a song.
It's interesting.
Right? That happens.
100%. Also, like, when loved ones pass on, there are times where, like, obviously I don't really get too much into this, but I do follow a medium on social media, and he basically says, like, if you ever heard of like that song, and this specific lyric happens to pop up in that song, where it kind of just reminds you of that person, that means that they're actually kind of, in a sense, visiting you and just making sure that everything's okay with you. Obviously, there has a lot of people that have different opinions on mediums and whatever.
Yeah,
but for some people,
energy though
that can be healing.
Yes.
Could you also name a time where you felt like your art helped heal someone else? Have you ever received an email, text, phone call, or even a notification from someone who felt like you helped heal them at an instance where they were down on their luck and going through a tough time?
Yeah, I have a lot of experiences of that. I tested positive in 2002 for HIV. In 2005, 3 years later, is when I started living openly with my status. And for a whole number of reasons, I made a decision that if any room I was going to inhabit had to know my status, you had to welcome the fact that I was of Latin descent, that I was a gay man and HIV positive. Like, those were not things I was going to hide for you or make you feel comfortable by not discussing it or not presenting it. Like, this is me. This is me. And I made that promise to myself in 2005, 3 years after testing positive. So when Hamilton came around, I didn't even think about it. It wasn't a plan. I didn't map anything out. I didn't even think ahead. My very first interview with the New York Times was the first to release, I guess is the word I'm looking for, an interview with me after going from part-time playing Hamilton to full-time playing Hamilton. And in that interview, I started talking about testing positive HIV in my journey and whatever. And the journalist looked at me and said, "Can I print that?" And I said, "Of course you can." I didn't think about it. I'd already been living my life for 10 years, 11 years openly, living with it since 2002, but since 2005 saying, this is me. Like, I don't hide it for nobody. And if you have a problem with it, you have the problem. It is not mine. And that has been me again, that fire, that thing in me that is me, that I know I can take the attacks because they come and they have come and they continue to come and they will continue. As long as there is fear, there will always be attacks.
True.
And this moment, I had no way to know how impactful it would be. We not only do we live in a time now where so many people with HIV live openly with their status, and that is after my sort of bloodied entrance through the door because the degree of attacks that I took to still be here and still be a voice and still push us forward. We're living at a time where folks who would write to me back in 2016, 2017, 2018, share their journeys, whether it was LGBTQ plus related or they were facing a health challenge or some obstacle in their life, and they felt like I would understand. And they were right, and there was space held. And these are strangers. Most of these people I've still never met. Beautiful exchanges, and it was a lot to take in, and it was really heavy. I wouldn't change it for the world because I received these messages primarily of people saying, I didn't know I needed that. I didn't know I needed to see an openly HIV positive person on stage like that. Mm-hmm. I didn't know, but I came and I saw you because I needed to see you. And things like the difference it made to someone that Hamilton was gay. You know, and we can debate all we want about history, but like someone coming to the theater to just see me in that role, to receive messages where the tough time that someone is going through with their health, and they're so inspired by some photograph I posted, and they've drawn it or they've sketched it or they've illustrated it in some way, and they've sent it to me with their letter of outreach. I saved every single thing I received. I have this ginormous bin in my closet of every correspondence that was ever sent to me when I was in Hamilton.
Wow. I
saved it all. Nothing got thrown away. Nothing. It all meant that much to me.
Yeah.
And it still means that much to me. And I think, especially now when it's really hard is such a mild word. Our lives are in danger as LGBTQ plus people right now. And yet, the thing I focus on to celebrate too is look at the advancements we've made with HIV treatment. Look at the advancements we've made in cancer treatment. I mean, to have the virus so suppressed in me that I can't give it to anyone else at this point is unbelievable. It's that thing of, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. We make all these advances and yet we still have to fight our way through other things. But I have not gotten it always right. But the fact that another human being on this planet feels safe enough to share something with me, that's a spark of light. That's a spark of good. Who knows what's been healed in them by sending that? But I know what's been healed in me from receiving that.
It probably means the world to that person that you acknowledged them and understood them, listened to them, reflected with them on that situation that they brought to you, or whatever it is they brought to you. I know that they probably don't know you, but they trust you as a person. What you do, especially through the people that follow you on like social media or whatever, you connect with them on a deeper level. Not a lot of people do that.
Yeah. I very consciously choose to do that.
Yeah, it's almost if you like talk to them as if they're in the same room as you.
That's exactly how I want it to be. Yes.
Yeah, and that's very therapeutic, especially to some people that need that.
Yeah.
If you were to be able to go back in time, what would you tell your younger self when you were looking for healing through your art? Would you have said something that might have been helpful for your journey? And then what would you tell a future up-and-coming artist who was looking for a way to navigate the arts and to find healing simultaneously?
I would say the same thing, and I'm going to get a little emotional about this because I really do feel this, and I am so overwhelmed at the amount of effort it takes to just wake up every morning and face the day, because each and every one of us is greeted with a barrage of negativity. Whether it's something on the news, whether it's something in our community, it's something from our neighbor. It could be an article we read. It could be an event. It could be something personal, like a health thing. I mean, there's so much each of us faces every single day. And I would literally say this to my younger self, and I say this to every artist out there who's listening, every human who's listening, the greatest gift we can give ourselves is to be so gentle with ourselves. I say it, and I feel like it's some sort of cliche when I say it, but I really, really mean this. There is so much negativity day in and day out. Allow the time when we are with ourselves, the conversations we have in our mind, the memories we play back, and the things we dwell on and think about, the ways we look at ourselves in the mirror, the ways we feed ourselves or dress ourselves or bathe ourselves, the things we choose to wear or not wear or own or not own, all of that is about us. And every decision about us as individuals, let it be gentle. Let all of that be so damn loving that it hurts in that beautiful, painful way that love hurts, because that has to exist amongst everything else that we deal with day in and day out. Let every little thing that concerns you as an individual, me as an individual, all of us as individuals, be so gentle and loving. Because you just have to get it somewhere. And at least let it be from yourself.
Thank you. Javier, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us on An Artist's Way of Healing and for sharing your story with us. What's even more amazing about your story is not only did your art heal you, but you made your art your career, and you are using your art to heal others every day. I can definitely say that you have impacted lives today in a positive way with your words, wisdom, and most importantly, the story you shared that led to your fulfilling journey as an artist. I hope people also get inspired to find their own journeys through art. I am sure that people in the performing arts world have also been impacted today. I can imagine that your journey is not over, nor will it ever be over, as we as artists are continuing to learn through our art every day. Through our art, we learn, grow, expand ourselves, and discover things within ourselves that we never knew existed. This is part of our healing. Our healing through our art keeps us going and thriving. It helps lead us to healthier and more fulfilling lives. Thank you for being a beacon of light and a true activist for the LGBTQ+ and HIV/AIDS and theater communities. There is so much about you that people need in this world. They need your energy. They need your kindness and thoughtfulness. They need your stories. They need your compassion and your inspiration for those who want to follow in your footsteps. For you have planted the seeds to an amazing legacy of future inspired artists who are learning off of the path that you created for not only yourself, but for others every day. The most amazing thing about you is that while you are constantly facing a jam-packed schedule with back-to-back scheduling, you still make time for yourself to meditate, reflect, and be present in the world that you are currently living in, and you share your experiences with your followers. Thank you for sharing your healing stories today so that others can not only relate, but to help others understand that they are not alone in their struggles and journeys, that there is always someone out there extending a hand to help others, just as you did today with your words and wisdom. With that said, thank you all again for tuning into An Artist's Way of Healing. I'll see you next time, friends.